pass that message that growth is not just upwards, that there are huge opportunities laterally,
Sure.
and sometimes even some people in the past have gone backwards to learn.
It's a very good question. I think people will say, gee, I'm not really growing unless I'm promoted. And I think we have to try to separate the two. And we also have to try to present as much information as we can about, the more skills that you develop, the more cross-functional opportunities. So some of the things we heard this morning where you get out of your comfort zone and try to do something different and maybe take a rotation in finance or in marketing or something becomes hugely important. And as you really look at the data now about people who are successful at the highest levels of our profession, they all have had cross-functional experiences and activities. So I think part of it is just making that message clear. I know some startups. My son runs a couple of internet-based startups, and one of the things they do is they give people $1,500 and say, this is for your own personal development. Spend it as you would like. So they trust them to do the right thing, but they just say, this is so important to you, here's the clicker. You decide. We're not going to decide. I also am a very big advocate of getting people to work out in the community and seeing perhaps nonprofit experience, so not just within the company, but are there things in the community or outside that will contribute to your growth and development, and you're also, serving a bigger purpose. I think Dave Ulrich in his latest book talked about that as well, that there are plenty of opportunities outside of work to sharpen your skills. But it's a good question. Yeah.
I would like to jump on that same topic. 25 years ago, we disconnected salary from hierarchical level. Right? So we pay for expertise. You don't need to make a promotion as a manager, right? So we try to make the basis of salary your contribution to the company, right? So, and you can do that as an expert in a certain domain, or as a sales manager, or as a people manager, or in research. There's many different ways. But if you only pay for the real promotion, the hierarchical promotion, it will be very difficult to convince people that it's worth making a lateral move, right?
Yes. Well, I applaud the notion of saying there's only one way to go up, which is to be promoted, become a manager. As they say, if your top salesperson becomes like a sales manager, you lose twice. You've got somebody who doesn't want to be a manager, and you're taking your top salesperson out of a... So having multiple paths and multiple ways in which people can perform and get compensated, I think is very important. At Facebook, nobody is a manager at Facebook unless they choose to be a manager. And they get data every quarter on how effective they are. And if they're not very effective, then they'll be escorted out of being a manager. But they've recognized that, there are plenty of ways to make contributions as an individual contributor or engineer, plenty of ways to make the business successful, but it's not tied to one particular piece. The other thing, I know today we saw the word portfolio. I think Gareth might have mentioned it. I tend to think about people development, to think about building your own portfolio with different experiences, different opportunities, different contexts, different cross-functional assignments, and continuing to build and invest in yourself. The 70-20-10 methodology, which I think we're all pretty familiar with, the science around that is really pretty bad. It doesn't really confirm the ratio of 70-20-10. But what is confirmed is you learn from experiences, and you learn when you are taken out of your comfort zone. And it's actually, that is when you're the most engaged, when you're challenged. So we tend to think, oh, you're engaged if you're kind of having a good time and laid back. No. When you're stretched physically and mentally and even spiritually, that's when you're the most engaged. So we should think about how we can move people into their learning zones where that stretch occurs, and I think that's a real key for their subsequent development.